Good morning, everyone. We are here with Dr. Ilana Shalansky, who has been covering the topic of the research of the Ebola virus. There has been a recent outbreak of Ebola in West Africa, and now it has made its way to the United States and is becoming a national and actually a worldwide issue. So, Ilana, can you tell us about some of the methods of transmission for Ebola?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Well, while Ebola is very infectious, it's not that contagious. It's very infectious in that a single thread of Ebola can cause a fatal infection in a person. The initial way of transmission that we all think is that it initially transmitted from animals to humans it's transmitted through body fluids. And it's spread through direct contact with the blood or body fluids of a sick person with Ebola. Objects, as in needles or syringes, that have been contaminated with the virus, infected animals. But it's not spread through the air or water that we know of yet.
Oh, interesting. Thank you very much for that information. Do you think you could give us some examples of how it transmits?
Yes.
Here, this person is infected with Ebola. She has just coughed on her hand and is now opening a door and will soon close it for the next victim. Here is a perfectly healthy human going towards the door. She opens the door, touches her face, gets in her eye. She now is infected with Ebola.
An example of how Ebola is transmitted through sweat. As the person who unknowingly has Ebola steps off the elliptical, her friend goes and congratulates her, patting her arm.
Thank you.
Woo! Because the virus is transmitted through sweat, Megan now has Ebola.
Hi, this is Erin, live from Africa, where Ebola outbreak is at its peak. Now we're going to look at how the virus.
First, Ebola uses a specialized glycoprotein called a peptimer to attach to the host cell. Next, it is then engulfed in the host cell by endocytosis. Next, Ebola's virion envelope fuses with the cellular membrane of the host, and the virus's nucleocapsid is released. Next, after the virus uncoats, the nucleocapsid is translated onto a positive strand of messenger RNA from the host cell, and this nucleic acid message is translated into viral proteins. Next, the process of glycosylation happens. In glycosylation, viral proteins attach to the glycans of the host cell. The glycoprotein precursors are cleaved into two glycoproteins, glycoprotein 1 and 2. Next, a negative strand of RNA is synthesized. It will be used as a template to create positive single-strand RNA. At the same time, glycoproteins 1 and 2 combine to form heterodimers. Next, heterodimers multiply, forming trimers. These trimers will form the surface peptimers of the new Ebola cells. Next, new copies of the Ebola viral RNA are synthesized. From the negative-stranded RNA strand, the trimers travel to cell membrane. Next, the trimers, which are essentially viral proteins in the new genomes of the synthesized RNA, aggregate around the edges of the host cell and prepare to bud. Next, the new Ebola viruses are now bud from the host, taking the cell membrane from them. Lastly, the new Ebola are now ready to infect other cells.
Thank you. Now let's have a talk with the CDC and find out how we can prevent Ebola. Now we're here with Megan Welsh, who works for the CDC, to learn about some of the ways that we can prevent Ebola. Megan, can you share with us?
Yes, Aaron. Thank you. Actually, Ebola is a huge issue right now in the world, and the CDC is doing everything they possibly can in order to prevent this terrible virus. Well, some of the ways we are trying to prevent it right now is with a lot of posters in trying to get as much information out as possible. We feel the more informed people are, the better knowledge they'll have about the virus, and the better they'll be at trying to prevent it for themselves. We have actually had some experience with this disease already in Africa. So now that it's made its way to the United States, we are somewhat aware of how it's transmitted and how to prevent it. Well, first off, you do not want to touch any bodily fluids of an infected person. So that goes for nurses and doctors too. They have to be careful when taking blood and dealing with throw up and any form of sweat, anything like that. So our doctors and nurses are in full body suits when dealing with patients. No parts of their skin should be shown, and they should be washing down with bleach and following all procedures. For the average American, you do not want to be sharing drinks with anyone. You do not want to be kissing, hugging, nothing that involves bodily fluids. In Africa, they actually had a moat of bleach around the building of the hospital because they wanted to try to keep the outside world safe from the inside of where the issue was relevant. A lot of people are handing out brochures right about now, and you really want people to avoid infected areas unless obviously their profession demands of it, such as doctors and nurses. And this doesn't really apply to America, but a lot of Africans, the issue was they need to avoid bushmeat because sometimes bats can carry the disease. But for the most part, the CDC is still working towards finding the perfect prevention for this virus. Thank you.
Ebola is a very serious condition, and without the proper prevention or care, it can become an international issue.
Help stop Ebola!